Hello folks, today we build login and authentication form using Spring, Thymeleaf and Java. We're gonna store our data in PostgreSQL DB, use HTML, CSS for the front-end part. As usual, I need an empty Spring Boot project. I generate group, artifact, name and project package. I need to add some dependencies to my project. The first dependency is web dependency because we build a web project, and the next dependency is GPA to work with database and PostgreSQL driver, and one more dependency is Thymeleaf. I click generate and open my project in Intellij IDEA. Okay, first of all, we need a model to store the data for the incoming requests. We're gonna store user data, login, password, and email. We create firstly package model, and then put the user model into that package with appropriate annotations for our database. Let's call our table users table. It's the name of the table in database. We need a ID. We're gonna store ID as integer. We also need login, password, and email. We need to generate getters and setters. We also need to generate equals and hash code. And toString method. As password is sensitive information, we don't want it to appear in the log statements, so we're gonna exclude password from toString method. Okay, our user model is ready. Let's create repository. In the GPA repository, I specify entity for the GPA and primary key type. Entity is user's model and primary key type is integer, the same as the type of ID. And this when we extend GPA repository, our user repository will have default CRUD methods for our user, and we need one custom method. Let's add find by login and password. And let's create service layer. we need to mark our service with service annotation to be able to inject service into the required classes. We're gonna use our service in controller. And let's create two methods in our service. First method is register user for register form, and login user to handle a login form. We're gonna receive login, password, and email. And let's make login and password as mandatory params. If login and password is not null, we create new users model. We add login, password and email to the users model. And after that, we store our users in the database by calling a users repository save. Firstly, let's auto-wire our users repository. And my IDE says that auto-wiring through the field is not preferable. Preferable way is auto-wiring through the constructor. So I use auto-wiring through the constructor. And I call users repository save and return save user. Else I just return null. And I can invert if condition. I reformat my code and optimize imports, and my register user method is ready. So let's try to write authentication method. In the incoming params, login and password are coming, and we need to find the user by login and password. And in case we haven't found the user in the database, that means that credentials are incorrect. So as of now, let's return null, or else null. Now that's how we implemented authenticate method for our service. So let's try to write some controller. Firstly, as usual, we create controller package. Let's call it users controller. We mark this controller as controller with controller annotation to show that it's Spring MVC controller. And let's firstly add methods to redirect user to the specific page, specific Thymeleaf or HTML page. So first method is get mapping and get register page. And we need to return string with the name of our HTML page. By default, Spring Boot has configuration to serve all the HTML pages under templates. And by default, if you put index HTML page under static resources, this page will be served automatically by Spring Boot without any controller and mapping from the code. So in the static resources, I put just index HTML page as welcome page for our application. On the welcome page, I put a welcome message and 2 links to the registration form and to the login form. When user will click to this register, our controller will listen this register URL, and then this get mapping register will work, and the register page will be returned, and user will be redirected to this register page. As of now, it's time to add register page and login page. And let's add a login page. And we need a pretty template for our register page and login page. I get the templates from the Codepen, but you can get the template from any page you want. I just paste form simple, and this form looks fine and pretty simple. So I copy paste the code of HTML and CSS to my application. And for the login, I need to customize this form from the Codepen for my purposes. So if I want to log in user, I need his login and password. Password is already present here. As you can see, there is also some kind of validation, so we need to add specific validation for the front end. This form already has the validation of the incoming fields, and we already have a login value for the login button. And let's say for the forget password, let's change this to navigate user to the register. Let's do the same actions for the registration. Let's copy this form. And we need one more field, it's email. If you specify input type as email, the HTML will validate this field as email. And email is not required for us. And in case user doesn't want to register, he can navigate to the main page. And we need to copy paste CSS styles. By default, Spring serves static resources from the static folder, so we need to put our CSS styles to the static folder. Firstly, let's create directory, call it CSS, and create file, and let's call it style CSS. and we need to add this style CSS to our pages. In the head we add link rel style sheet, and the link to these styles is CSS style CSS, and we need to do the same action for the login page. Our front end is ready. Let's get back to our user's controller and do the same actions for the login. And we almost done. First, we have PostgreSQL DB. We need to add properties for the DB connection into application properties. We need to add Sprint data source. I created for this purposes testDB. We need to specify driver. As we use Postgres, we specify PostgreSQL driver. We specify username and password. We specify dialect. And to allow our application create the tables if they are not created in the database, we specify Sprint GPA Hibernate DDL auto update. Okay, we can start our application to see how it works, how it navigates through the pages. Okay, our application is started. Let's navigate to the browser and try to run localhost 8080. We can navigate to the registration. We can navigate to the login, and everything looks fine. And let's just try to add some logic to register and log in the user. First of all, we need to add controller to handle incoming register and login requests. It's going to be post methods. And when we redirect user to the register page, let's put a simple object to the model and to the attributes of Thymeleaf, and then when user will paste data into the form, this object will have values in its fields. Let me show you in practice. We need to add model. It's an interface from this Sprint, which allows to put attributes in the model. By model, I mean a register page or login page, our Thymeleaf. So we put model, add attribute, and let's try to say, let's call our attribute register, or let's just add register request. You can specify any name in the attribute you want. And we say that register request, we need to say new users model. We can even create separate DTO class for our register request, and it will be better to use DTOs instead of models, but I wanna show you a quick approach without a lot of classes. So if you want, you can use DTO classes instead of using an entity class directly in the controller. And in the login page, we need to put also user login and password. We can also put it in the user model. So we also specify model from this Sprint boot. Actually, this class is from this Sprint MVC. And we let's specify login request. when this page will render or a register page will render, the screen will put a login request with empty user model on that page, and then on Thymeleaf we will use this object to register user. Let's format my code. And then when we will receive the incoming register request, we will receive our user's model with required fields by annotation model attribute. Let's log incoming request. It's better to use login, but I will use system out to simplify this tutorial. And we need to auto-wire our user service. And when we receive register request, we can say user service register our user. And all the information we receive, we can manipulate it by using registered user. We can manipulate the pages by using the model we receive. For example, if we receive registered user as not null, we can return user login page. That means that user successfully registered in our application. If we receive registered user as null, it means that login or password are incorrect, so we can show user some default error page and show him that his credentials are missing. So let's say user registered user is null, then we return some error page. Otherwise, let's return redirect login. It's nothing but just ternal operator instead of else-if statements. So if the registered user is null, then we return error page. Otherwise, we redirect user to the login. And login will handle this get mapping and return a login page. So let's just create error page in our templates. We just specify some error message for the user, and let's redirect user to the, let's add user possibility to to redirect to register or login page. Okay, and the next we gonna add a login controller for the same purpose. And instead of user service register user, we call authenticate. And this time we need just email and we just need login and a password. And let's say if user is not null, let's navigate user. If user is authenticated, let's redirect him to some personal account page. Let's create personal account page. And the personal page, we just put welcome message. And here we create a placeholder for the user. And we need to return personal page. Otherwise, return error page. And let's add some Thymeleaf logic to our personal page, login page, and register page. Okay, to mark our page as Thymeleaf, we need to add in the HTML attribute the next line, which says that this is gonna be Thymeleaf page. So we need to add it to the register page, to the personal page, and to the login page. Let's do the first action with register. We navigate to the form and say a method is post, action is register, and Thymeleaf object is register request. It's the interesting part. Register request. This register request is the model attribute we put in the register get mapping method. So this is gonna be user's model with empty fields. And when user clicks submit, all the data from that pages by the input name will be pasted to the user's model. So it's gonna be login, password, and email. And when you will do this example on your machine, just make sure that these fields are the same as the name of your input fields. And let's do the same action for the register, or for the login. So we need action as login and login request. And let's navigate to the personal page and add some Thymeleaf text as user login, for example. And as of now, let's add this attribute when user successfully authenticated on our page. So if on the login, if user is authenticated, we can put, firstly we need to add model, and we can model put add attribute user's login authenticated get login. Okay, let's start our application. and check if it works. Okay. Here is our login page. Let's navigate to the main. Let's try to log in with some incorrect credentials. Let's leave login as admin. And here we see you entered incorrect data. Please retry your action. Here we navigated to the error page. Okay, let's try to navigate to registration and register our user. Let's select admin123 login. Let's specify some dummy email. And let's select some strict password because as you remember, we have some validation on HTML. And we need to rename this button from the login to the register. Okay, we successfully registered. Let's try to navigate to the personal account page. Oops, and we see an error. Query did not return a unique result. What does it mean? It means that in the database we already have a user with admin123 login. Why this is happened? Because when I prepared this tutorial, I already created such user and I tested it. So let's try to register a new user first, and then we will fix the bug we have on our simple form application. Let's try to register some admin1234. Sorry, incorrect password. Let me try once again. And you can see I successfully navigated to the personal page of admin1234. So let's fix the bug with the same login and password. It's rare, but it can happen. First of all, when we register user, we need to make sure that such user with such login is not present already. So let me create some simple validation. First of all, we need to add method to the user repository to check if user with such login is present. And in the registration, we say if user is already present with such login, we will return null. That means that credentials with registrations are incorrect. Okay, this time our validation will not allow to register user with duplicated records. Let's get back to our application and check if validation works. As you can see, we have an error page. You entered incorrect data. Please retry your application again. You can add more informative message, for example, that login is duplicated. But I guess using this approach in this video, you will do this action without any difficulties. Guys, that's it what I wanted to show you today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned. Goodbye.